In this video, I'm going to teach you how to round decimals, okay? And so here's the rhyme that we use for rounding decimals. Take the place, look next door, 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest, okay? And then just a quick review of our place values. Our decimals right here, and we know that right to the left of the decimal place, we have our whole numbers. We have our ones place, we have our tens place, it would go on to the hundreds place, thousands place, 10,000s place, etc. And then after our decimal, we have our tenths place and hundredths place, and then if we went on, we would have our thousandths place, 10,000ths place, etc. Okay, but for this, we're just going to need these ones. Okay, so first we're going to be rounding to the nearest tenth. And our first one is 46 hundredths right here. So take the place. The place is tenths. We're rounding to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to take the place. Well, the tenths is right to the right of our decimal, right here, our tenths. So to the right of the decimal here, in our tenths place, we have a 4. Okay, so take the place. Look next door. That means to the number to the right. Right here we have a 6. Take the place, look next door to the 6. 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, is 6 5 or higher or 4 or less? Well, hopefully you said that it is 5 or higher because it is higher than 5. So that means we're going to add 1 more. When we say add 1 more, we don't mean add 1 more to the 6. We're not adding 1 more to the 6 because we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So we're worried about tenths here. So we're going to add 1 more to our tenths place. We started out with a 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So instead of a 4 in the tenths place, we would have a 5 in the tenths place. So we're rounding 46 hundredths to 5 tenths. When we're rounding to the nearest tenth, there shouldn't be anything in the hundredths place. Nothing should be coming after that tenths place. Next, we have 4 and 35 hundredths. Take the place. A 3 is in our tenths place. Look next door. A 5 is next door in our hundredths place. 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, it is a 5, so 5 or higher, add 1 more. That means we're going to have to add 1 more to the tenths place or the hundredths place. We need to add 1 more to the tenths place because we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So we're going to do 3 plus 1, which is 4. So we're going to keep our 4, which was in the ones place, keep our decimal, and then after the decimal, we're going to put a 4 in the tenths place because we're rounding up to 4. Now we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, okay? And our first number is 3 and 214 thousandths. So take the place. Well, what's in the hundredths place in this number? The 1 is in the hundredths place. This is the tenths place. This is the hundredths place. See? This is the hundredths place. We've got a 1. Look next door. 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, we've got a 4. So we're going to let it rest. Do you remember what that means? It means that we're not going to change anything about that 1. We're going to keep the 3 the same, the 2 the same, and then we're going to keep the 1 in the hundredths place. Nothing afterwards. We don't need that 4 because we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. There shouldn't be anything in the thousandths place or anything after that. Then we've got 929 thousandths. Take the place. We're rounding to the hundredths place. A 2 is in the hundredths place. Look next door. 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, it's 5 or higher because it's 9. That's much higher than 5. So we're going to add 1 more. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So the 0 will stay the same. The 9, which is in the 10th place, will stay the same, and that 2 in the 100th place is going to turn into a 3. Nothing in the 1000th place. This 9 can go away. And then we're going to be rounding to the nearest whole number. So whole number means ones place. When we say whole number, we mean we're rounding to the nearest ones place. So that's directly to the left of the decimal. So in this first number, 4 716 thousandths, take the place. Well, the place is right here, all the way on the left in the ones place. Look next door. So I'm going to go over the decimal and look next door at the 10th place. 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, it is a 7, so it's higher than 5. So I'm going to add 1 more, which gives us 5. And that is all we need to put. There shouldn't be anything after the decimal when we're rounding to the nearest whole number. Nothing coming after the decimal. Next, we've got 829 and 21 thousandths. That's a big number. Doesn't mean it's any harder because we're just going to take the place, look next door, 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, it's a 0. So that's pretty much as low as you can go. So that's 4 or less. That means we're letting it rest. Letting it rest. And so that 9 is going to stay the same. Everything that comes before the 9 is going to stay the same. So we still have our 8, still have our 2. Our 9 will stay the same, and nothing's going to come afterwards because we're rounding to the nearest whole number. We don't need anything after the decimal.